Welcome to this morning's presentation on strengthening your hypermobile core with Pilates in the speaker talk. I'm Jeannie. Just before we get started, I don't have any conflicts of interest or anything to disclose. So today we're going to be talking about Pilates as a general umbrella, but we're also going to be looking at the methodology I developed in my clinic in London, working specifically with hypermobile and EDS patients. But before we get into that, it didn't seem right to start any sort of presentation on Pilates without talking about the man himself, Joseph Pilates. So before we get started, who's actually tried Pilates before? Oh, that's great. So quite a lot of you. Great, and hopefully I can convince some of you to try it today if you haven't already been thinking of it. So Joseph Pilates was a man, so he died in 1967, and here's a photograph of him. Now I'm not recommending anybody tries this, okay? So he was quite a determined character, and he was adamant that his method worked, and just to prove that, he would go around standing on people's abdominal muscles. So I'm not recommending that for anybody at home, but it just goes to show that he really believed in what he was talking about. Now I wanted to start with two quotes from his book. So he wrote a book called Return to Life, and one of my two favourite quotes. So the Pilates method teaches you to be in control of your body and not at its mercy. Now I really love that because I don't know about you, but as a hypermobile person, so many times I feel that I'm at the mercy of my body and I have no control over it, or certainly I did before I started doing Pilates. So, he's saying that his method can give you that control, which I think is a really powerful thing and is really useful for us as hypermobile and EDS patients. And then a really lovely quote: change happens through movement and movement heals. So, and we're going to see some case studies in a little while of how movement really is medicine, and in the right conditions, it can really be a healing process. So those are just two of my favourite quotes. So we talk about him before he died. It only became known as Pilates after he died. So when he was alive, he called it contrology. So he meant he wanted to bring control to the mind and the body. And that's a really powerful thing. When he was young, he was very ill. So he was German, and he grew up in a very poor conditions in Germany. He had lots of illnesses, asthma being one of them. And he wasn't expected to live very long at all. But he basically cured himself. He practiced yoga, tai chi, martial arts, and through these different forms of exercise, he created contrology. So you'll see, and if you've done Pilates, you might see that there are certain things that look a bit like yoga. You might see different elements coming into Pilates, and that's why, because he took a holistic view of movement. Now that photograph there is of somebody exercising on a bed. So this was his work. This is one of the very first things he started to do, was exercise with people during World War I, people inmates in a camp, to rehabilitate them. So he thought if he could get them moving their arms and their legs, then he would be able to start to create mobility again, which he did. So that's why a lot of his equipment looks like beds. So if you've ever seen a reformer, has anyone been on a reformer machine? Yeah, so a few of you, yeah. So they look like beds, and this is why, because they were originally beds with springs attached to them. So he's a real genius, and actually he wasn't shy about his accomplishments. He called himself a visionary, an inventor, a creator, and he believed he was 50 years ahead of his time. And I think he was, because he just looked at what the body needed, what a body in pain needed, and he created these fabulous machines to help us move. And now Pilates is practiced by over 12 million people worldwide. So from his vision, we now have this global movement practice. So, his legacy is living on. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me and how I'm trying through my work to bring awareness to hypermobility and EDS. So I've been teaching Pilates since 2008, and I have a clinic in London which I call Create, creating movement, creating new approaches to life. I've written a book called Pilates Without Tears, which really promotes a no pain, no strain movement strategy as opposed to a no pain, no gain. So it's really moving away from that concept that we have to feel pain in order to move. I firmly believe that we don't need to feel pain at all to move. So that book came out last year. And then my work is very much rehab focused, so I work a lot with pain management, with chronic pain, with injuries, and probably because I'm hypermobile, I started to attract lots of clients with hypermobility and EDS, and I've worked a lot with classical-like and hypermobile EDS. So a good 50% of my clients are now hypermobile or have EDS. So I have a lot of experience in working in this field, and it's something I'm deeply, deeply passionate about in helping people return to life through movement. And through my work, I developed this movement method, which I call the integral movement method. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that. And I like sharing this photo because this was taken when I just qualified, I just started teaching, and despite my best efforts, as you can see, I've still got my hyperextended elbow. So I'm hoping that's changed a little bit now. But I thought I was doing really well, but those elbows give it all away. Okay, so what is Pilates? So those of you who don't know much about Pilates, we'll just have a quick overview. So it's a non-impact exercise. So this is brilliant for us because it's great for our joints. It's not an aerobic exercise where we're going to have to jump up and down and do sort of high-intensity work. So it's great for joints. And it's all about promoting controlled movements. So control is a huge, huge part of Pilates, and we're gonna look at that in a little bit more detail. Now, it's a mind and body connection, which again is a fantastic bonus for us because it's great for pain and it's great for stress. So when we're in pain, obviously stress levels go up. We've been learning a lot during this weekend about how stress impacts the body, not just on a short-term level, but the cellular impact of stress on the body. So if we can manage our stress, manage our pain, we're going to reduce that level. So mind, body, really, really important. As we were just talking about Joseph Pilates, it's performed on a mat. So Pilates can be performed on a mat or on a machine. So this top photograph here is of me teaching a small mat class, using a small ball as a bit of resistance. And then the photograph on the bottom is me teaching a girl on a reformer. So as you can see, that again looks a bit like a bed. And where she's lying, that bit there actually moves. So it facilitates movements of the legs. And as you can see, they're all very supportive positions. So lying on the back, lots of support for the head and neck and the spine, and promoting movement through the lower leg. So it's a brilliant supportive exercise. Now it can be taken as a group, as in the top photograph, or it can be taken one-to-one. So again, that's a choice to make. Now the thing I really love about Pilates is that it's accessible for everybody. So I don't mind, I have people who can barely move at all, to people who are pretty fit. There's something for everyone. So it doesn't matter if you can't get out of your chair. There is so much that you can do. Seated, if you can only lie down, there's so much you can do. So I firmly believe that this is for everybody. Now there are different schools of Pilates, and they have different thought processes. And I just want to touch on that. So there are obviously schools where, unfortunately, and it is unfortunately, people can get qualified on a weekend. So they can say, I can teach Pilates on a weekend. And opposed to a school where you have to do an intensive year, 2-year training program. Now obviously the level of awareness and capability on someone who's done a weekend is going to be very different to someone who's done a very intensive training program. And as a consumer, so for you guys, Unless you really know that and understand that and ask questions, you're not going to know. You're not going to know if someone's done the weekend or if they've done the sort of intensive course. So it's really important to be aware of the type of school that or the type of teacher that you're going to. And when I say different thought processes, there are some schools out there that will only teach the work of Joseph Pilates, and his work, although it's fantastic, has evolved an awful lot, and a lot of his work is not suitable for us. It's just not. There's a lot of loaded work, and I wouldn't teach my clients a lot of what he taught. Things have moved on. But there are schools that come from a rehab basis, and they're very, very happy to modify, and that's what we need. We need people who are going to modify the exercises for us. And I just want to touch on something that came up yesterday, actually, when I was doing my talk yesterday. Some people were asking me about, can they do aerobic classes? Can they go to bar? I don't know if you've heard of bar and things like that. And again, it's really important that those teachers there are probably not going to be aware of hypermobility and EDS. So if you choose to do those sorts of things, I'm not saying don't do them if it's suitable for you, because we've all got different capabilities. But basically you've got to self-manage, because they're not going to understand EDS. So if they're asking you to do all these fancy things, you've got to know your range of movement. So, Pilates is an excellent supplement to any existing medication or program from your doctor, but it's not a replacement. So I'm not advising people to give up what they're doing, but it is an excellent addition to your program from your medical practitioner. And as always, consult with any doctor, your doctor, before beginning any kind of exercise. Okay? So that's a little bit about Pilates. So we're now going to meet a couple of ladies. So a couple of my clients who very kindly did some interviews for me. So the words here are taken from the interviews themselves. And so we're going to meet Sarah, first of all. So this was Sarah when I met her many years ago. So she was a fit, athletic lady. She pushed her body really hard. So she liked to do endurance events like triathlons and marathons. And as a child, she'd always been bendy. So she described herself as bendy, and she could do funny tricks. So you can probably all relate to that, yeah, bending and doing funny positions. But she started experiencing dislocations whenever she exercised. So that something had changed, and she was getting injured after she exercised. Back pain was every day. So she thought that was normal. She came to me, she thought that pain was a normal part of her life. And she was taking anti-inflammatory meds and painkillers all the time. Okay, so that's Sarah. And then I'd like to introduce you to Emma, again, who very kindly participated in an interview with me. So she was a young mum with two children, and I think the symptoms got worse after she had her children. So that's kind of when something changed in her body. As we know, symptoms can change, EDS can come on at different times. So she'd been in chronic muscle pain since the year 2000, so that's a long time. And she's very injury prone, so whatever she did, she basically got injured. She was so unhappy. She had low mood, she was stressed, understandably. She had 2 children, she couldn't do anything with them. It was really affecting the quality of her life. She was uncoordinated, constant neck pain, shoulder pain, and sciatica. So she was, pretty unhappy. And she'd been misdiagnosed with an autoimmune condition, which she didn't really believe, and that's why she came to me, because she was so determined to find a solution that didn't involve this diagnosis that they'd given her. And this photo here is quite interesting. That's me teaching someone on another piece of Joseph Pilates equipment. Again, you can see the springs at the top. So we're using spring resistance to help teach shoulder stabilization. And as you can see, it's a very supportive position again. So we're lying on our back. There's support for the head and neck, and I'm holding the elbow there to help the lady understand how to move the arm without this hyperextension, and controlling those scapulars so that they don't sublux and dislocate. Okay, so that's our 2 ladies. So let's see where they are now. So this is Sarah. So these are from her own words, and I'm going to actually read you her interview in a moment. But basically, she said Pilates has completely changed her physical life. She has relearned how to move totally. She exercises pain-free, and she no longer lives in constant pain. She sleeps throughout the night without pain waking her up, and she hasn't taken painkillers for 3 years. So that's a massive, massive change. And this is her why. Why does she still do Pilates? It keeps her fit, it keeps her joints healthy, it increases her endurance, and it tones the body. So I'm just going to read you her little extract. Just need to put my glasses on for this one. Okay, so these are her own words. It was no joke. It was a physical epiphany. I actually cried when I realized I didn't need to live in constant pain. Pilates has retaught me how to stand, sleep, and walk. I've had to relearn how to move. My husband says I do not walk or move like the woman he married. I can now exercise pain-free. I have not taken painkillers for joint pain for well over 3 years. I wake up without pain, and I am not disturbed by pain in the night. So I was so proud of her to get to that position. And I just wanted to mention this photograph here. Again, that's me doing an exercise on the reformer. Again, this one's obviously a little bit more challenging. We've now come up to a standing position. But over time, if it was suitable for the individual, that's a kind of exercise I would be doing with a hypermobile person. Okay, not immediately, that would take time. But all these photographs are things that I would do if suitable with an EDS person. Okay. So let's have a look at Emma. Where's Emma? So she now has weekly Pilates session and less physio, so she doesn't need to rely on physio so much anymore. She's less injury prone, and she has minimal pain, but if she does get pain, she knows why. So if she does something, she overdoes it. I think we were hearing yesterday about the up and down of overactivity, inactivity. So sometimes when she's feeling really good, she'll go a bit crazy, and obviously she knows then that that can bring on a bit of pain. So at least she understands it, why it happens now. She's breathing efficiently, and we're going to talk about breath in a moment, to power and relax the body. She has greater body awareness, which is huge for us, for EDS patients. And she feels totally transformed from how she felt. And again, this is her why. Why does she do it? It brings control and awareness. She now understands how to exercise safely within a range of control, and that's really important, range of control. She feels a deep sense of movement and power from within that she's never felt before. And if we cast our mind back to what Joseph Pilates wrote all those years ago, that movement heals. So here are two ladies that were in considerable pain, and now they're saying they've never felt like this before. I think we can say that Joseph Pilates was spot on when he said that movement heals. And again, this photograph here is of me doing a plank exercise. My elbows are a little less hyperextended, so I'm pleased with that one. We're getting there. But again, a very challenging position. That platform that I've got my feet on moves, so I have to control the platform as well as supporting my own body weight. So that's a big ask for a hypermobile person. But again, if it was suitable and we got to that level, there's no reason why I wouldn't be doing that with someone if it was suitable for that individual. Okay, so that's Emma. Okay, so how did we get there? How did we work to get to this position? So this is a program for the EDS patient, which I've called, say, the integral movement method. So the integral movement method is the umbrella of my work, and then I follow some very specific protocols and procedures when I'm working with EDS and hypermobility, and that's what we're going to look at in detail now. So it's a Pilates-based program, but it's evolved from a rehab and pain management focus. So that's my passion, and that's where this program has come from. It's designed to work on the mind first, and then the body. And that's, I think, is one of the reasons it's been very successful, is because I get to the mind first, and we'll come on to how. because I need to, I'm sure you feel the same, when you've been in pain and it causes stress, we start to create tension in our body. We don't want to move because we're scared that it's going to hurt. So if we come in and we start exercising without addressing that first, calming the mind and calming the nervous system, your body is not going to be so happy to participate. So I'll be basically trying to lay a tension on top of tension. But if we can get rid of that tension first by addressing the mind, then the body and the brain are going to be much happier. So I always start there first. And this program enables us to build solid foundations for future. Okay, so it's a real solid base for your future movement, which you can then carry on to do other things, should you want to. And there are 6 levels, integrated elements to this program that I pretty much follow to the book. And we'll go through them in detail one by one. So we've got breathing, relaxation, proprioception, joint stability, balance, and posture. Okay, so we're going to look at all of those now in a little bit more detail. So, let's start with breathing. I was really encouraged actually on the first day to hear the presentation from Dr. Chopra. I don't know if you were there listening to the chronic pain presentation. And he was explaining how we often get pain just from breathing because of the lack of proprioception. Our ribs and our diaphragm are not moving as they should. So there's a little bit of conflict going on, and that alone can cause pain. So I was really encouraged because I always start with the breathing. And so that should hopefully help with any sort of chronic pain issues from that lack of proprioception. So basically, we have to relearn how to breathe. And you might be thinking, well, that's crazy. Of course I know how to breathe. I wouldn't be sitting here now if I didn't know how to breathe. But you'd be amazed how we actually forget how to breathe efficiently and effectively. So we're just going to do a little exercise in a moment, if you want to participate in that, just to bring some awareness to our breath. So awareness is, you'll see that word popping up all the time, awareness. There's one thing that we lack, in my opinion, is awareness of what our body's doing, of how we feel, because we just don't have that same sensory awareness. So bringing awareness to your breath can change so much already. Okay, it has an actual physiological impact on the body, so it's crucial. And I always teach breath first and movement second. So sometimes it depends how the person is when they come in. We might not do any movement for the first session. We'll just be relearning how to breathe. Okay, so, and as you can see, this photo here is of me, again, very supportive, lying on the ground, practicing some breathing exercises. So we're just going to have a quick 1-minute little practice to see how aware we are of our breath. Now, if you think this is going to make you feel dizzy or you don't want to participate, that's absolutely fine. If you do, and you feel okay with this, you're just going to place your hands on your breastbone, so on your sort of sternum, like I've got in the photograph. And if you're happy to, again, it's optional, but if you're happy to close your eyes, it might make it a little bit easier for you to connect. Okay, and if at any point you want to stop, please obviously stop. Okay, so with the eyes closed, just want you to feel the weight of your hands resting on your chest. So first of all, just be aware of your hands and the presence of your hands. And how do they feel? And then under your hands, you might even be able to feel your heart beating. But are you aware? Can you draw your attention to your breath? Now, I don't want you to try and change anything at all about your breath. I don't want you to try and start breathing deeply or doing anything different at all to what you were doing just a moment ago. But I just want you to see if you can follow your breath. So as you feel the breath, you probably feel it coming in through your nostrils, so you'll feel the air coming in through the nose. And where does it go? And you're just going to go on a journey with it. So where does that breath go? And then when you're ready, see if you can follow that breath leaving the body. And just in your own time, that's all I want you to do, is just quietly observe your own breath, without changing, without judging, just noticing it. Because typically in every day, unless we're out of breath or having palpitations, we probably don't pay much attention to our own breath. And I want you to notice if the breath does change, because you might notice that your breath starts to get a little bit quieter. Maybe you start to feel a little bit quieter. Maybe the mind starts to feel a little bit quieter. We're just going to do 3 more rounds of breath in your own time, no rushing. Just take your time, just stay with the breath. If you start to think of other things, that's fine too. When you catch yourself thinking about what you've got to do later, just bring your mind back to your breath. And when you take that last breath, just keep your eyes closed if you've got them closed, but allow your hands to just rest back on your lap. And see if you can still feel that breath rising and falling, even without your hands being there. And then when you're ready, just allow the eyes to very softly open and just come back into the room. So just from that little minute and a half, you might already feel a little bit calmer. So imagine relearning how to breathe effectively and efficiently. We start to already promote the relaxation response in the body. Okay? So breathing is absolutely essential to any kind of movement practice. So it takes us nicely on to relaxation. And as it says there, it's integrated into our breath. So when we start to observe the breath, it's the number one, if you're ever feeling stressed or in pain, it's the number one way to promote the relaxation response in your body is to focus on your breath. So it doesn't matter where you are, if you're out and about, if you're in a stressful situation, just doing 1 minute of quietly observing your breath can already calm your nervous system. So it's accessible to everybody. So it releases tension. So when I start to relax, muscular tension already starts to leave my body. And I start to feel a little bit more weighted down, a little bit easier to give into gravity. And I maybe start to recognize holding patterns. So by holding patterns, I mean, and you might be familiar with this, we mentioned it earlier, when I'm in pain, I'm going to be a little bit more protective. So I'll maybe hold myself slightly differently. Maybe I'll bring my shoulders up, maybe I'll be clutching my abdominal muscles, it could be anything. But we start to adapt these patterns of protection. But the problem with the patterns of protection is that they inhibit our movement. And then it makes us fearful of movement. And then we don't want to move. And then the more you don't move, the more painful it's going to get when we do start to move. So if we can recognize, oh, I'm doing that thing again where I tense up, or if I could just let that go, we start to release all of those old patterns. And importantly, we start to build sensory awareness. So we know that EDS and hypermobile people have less proprioception. So how can I start to foster proprioception so I'm more aware of what my body's doing? I build this sensory awareness. I take the time to notice my own body. And again, you can see me there just doing a very gentle rolling action, still very supportive on the ground. Rolling actions are very nurturing. So when you've been in pain, doing very gentle rolling actions like babies do when they're trying to learn to move about, very calming for the nervous system. So I always start people getting off with some really gentle, instinctive movements. So that brings us on to that proprioception. So again, awareness is up there again, the number one. We need to build awareness of what we're doing, of how we feel, what our body is doing in space. Control. We need control because we're the sort of people who can do those fabulous tricks and bend our limbs and people think it's fantastic. Well, it's not, because actually it's doing us a lot of harm. So how do I bring control to my body? And yet safely explore movement. I want to be able to move. How can I do it safely? And within range. So the mantra I say to all my hypermobile patients is, it's not about the range of movement. I don't mind what we do. We might only move a millimeter. It's about the control. So when we start, the range of movement gets reduced and reduced. I get them right back, and people get quite frustrated because they're used to doing these massive movements where they can put their arms on the floor, and we've seen all the pictures of people putting their hands flat on the floor. We don't do any of that. We rein it in, because that's the only way you're going to build proprioception. If you continue to do these massive, big movements, your brain will never relearn a new pattern. So range is really, really important. And you can see here I've got a little band, so those are really easy, you can buy those on Amazon as well, to help foster some awareness of what my leg is doing. So the band is giving me a little bit of proprioception, a little bit of resistance, and again I'm still lying on the floor, so I'm still really supportive when I'm moving. Okay, so we come on to joint stability. So here I am doing you notice that the picture has changed. I'm now no longer on my back. I've made it a little bit more challenging. I'm now, not only am I just got my hands and my lower leg on the floor, I'm also having to support my own body weight, which is huge. Yeah, that's where those shoulders and those hyperextending elbows are going to come into it. So awareness, there it is again, top of the list. I need awareness. If I'm going to do this sort of thing, I need to already have established some joint stability, because otherwise I'm going to do that and I'm just going to lock my elbows and I'm not going to know what my shoulders are doing or my lumbar spine. So we've already gone somewhere on our journey before we get to something like this. Now, core control, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Protection, so I've now established some awareness. I'm more aware of how to protect my joints. And I start to build some fluid movements because I'm no longer guarded and worried about movement. So I allow those movements to be a little bit more fluid, but I know I can control it. Now I'm going to talk just about core control. So those of you that know Pilates will know that people always talk about the core, don't they? How good it is for our core. And people often sort of pat their tummy when they say that, and they say core control, core muscles. Now, for me, in my opinion, these tummy muscles are not the core. They're part of a bigger picture. So yes, we need strong tummy muscles, but there's no good to me having strong tummy muscles if my head, neck, shoulder has no idea what it's doing in space. So if I'm still doing this with my neck, and my shoulders are still subluxing, it's not going to help me having strong tummy muscles. It's not going to help me having strong tummy muscles if my ankles and my feet are collapsing. Yeah, and I've got zero stability through my feet because my knees are going to hyperextend. My hips are not going to be happy. I'm probably going to be hyperextending my lumbar spine. So for me, the core is a bit like an apple core. It starts at the arch of the foot and it runs up the center of the body. So it comes through the inner thighs, through the pelvic floor, through the abdominal muscles, but then it continues all the way up to the roof of my mouth, because that's where my spine finishes and it has to support my head, and we know that that head weighs about 10 pounds. That's a big old weight for us to carry around all day, and as you know, we've heard how we say, oh, the head feels really heavy, I can't hold it up. It is really heavy, but if I can get that core, which is an organised whole body, that head's going to be much happier to be held up all day. Okay, so that's our joint stability. Balance, another big issue. Again, Pilates has a lot of balance. Again, yoga, you'll see elements of yoga in the balance. So here you see the picture has changed again. I'm now standing on one leg. That's a big ask, isn't it? If we haven't got ankle stability, awareness of our foot, strong feet, awareness of our knees, of our hips, I'm going to really struggle with this exercise. So again, this is way down the line. I've gone from lying on the floor to taking away the support until we're up in a functional position using my feet, because that's how I have to get around all day. Okay, so again, that will be somewhere down the line. We might have to use support, we might have to hold chairs to begin with. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's why Pilates is so beautiful, because it can be modified. Anyone can do balance exercises at some level. So it's essential for our everyday life. When we walk, you're going to be walking, there's going to be one foot on the ground and one off the ground. We need to be able to balance. It's integrated, so by this point, hopefully I'm understanding that my core starts at my foot and it finishes at the roof of my mouth. So I've hopefully got a pretty well aligned body. So I've got some stability now, but that stability is coming from the ground. How do I interact with the ground? If I'm not meeting that ground well, I'm not going to be stable. And of course, by this time, we've got some muscle tone. So I'm able to hold myself up there, and support myself. Okay, so that's balance. And posture, number 6, the final one. Posture. Now, posture is not something that anyone can teach you. Okay? So if I said to you, okay, we're going to stand up, and you're going to stand up straight, and you're going to put your shoulders back and hold your head up, and that's it, you're done, off you go, walk out the door. As soon as you got out of that door, you go, oh, I can't do that, because it's tiring. We cannot teach people to fix a posture. Yeah, we go back into those holding patterns where I'm trying really hard to stand up straight. Posture will emerge when you've organised the whole body. So when we put all those elements together, I always think of it as a butterfly kind of emerging. All of a sudden you'll wake up one day and go, oh, actually, I feel a little bit better today. I feel like I'm really supporting myself with my feet. And, we start to get this alignment. The body and the mind is starting to organise. They're talking to each other. And we have a healthy alignment. So when I have healthy alignment, of course my joints are going to be much happier because I'm not putting pressure on them. And just a thing about the joints, we need to really watch that hyperextension, because when we're hyperextending, we're increasing the wear and tear on our joints anyway. Okay, so we don't want arthritis, wear and tear further down the line either. So stopping hyperextension and keeping those joints healthy are really, really important. And the other thing about hyperextension is when you lock your joints, your muscles do not work anyway properly, because you block that communication. The proprioception of the joint is lost. So before I started Pilates, and I went to see a physio because I was in so much pain, he basically looked at me and said, "You're hanging off your joints." I would literally just stand like this. Literally just hanging. And I had no idea. He said, "You have zero core control," and I had no idea what he was talking about. And I had no idea that I even stood like that. But through Pilates, thank goodness he told me to go and try some Pilates, that's changed, and I no longer have pain, and that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with other people. And the beautiful thing about getting to the mind first and then the body is it is forever. It's not an exercise that you're going to learn, just thinking mechanically how to do an exercise. You're going to sense it, you're going to feel it, you're going to embody it, and that lasts because it changes everything about how you move. And so here you can see it's probably the most challenging one. I've come up onto a heel raise. So hopefully without hyperextending the ankles or locking the knees, balancing on just the forefoot. Okay, so that would be something that we'd be looking to do once we've established all those other things. Okay, so the benefits then for an EDS patient, so we'll just quickly summarise what we've gone through. Increased sensory awareness, so I can't emphasise that enough. When we start to foster sensory awareness, everything changes. We become so much more aware of everything. We get strength and control of movement. Again, control of movement is so, so important. We start to rein our movement in. That's not saying I'm saying stop doing big movements forever. But what I'm saying is we have to learn the movement first, the joint control first. Then you can bring your range back with control. But initially we have to learn how to do the control in the first place. We're going to have improved muscle tone because we're no longer hyperextending those joints. The muscles are going to have a chance to work, which of course is going to lead to injury prevention, which is brilliant. Improved breathing patterns, so breathing on so many levels. It's going to help you relax, it's going to reduce stress, it's going to get that proprioception of how the diaphragm should be working. Again, it's a great stress reliever if you ever need it. you're going to end up with a dynamic posture. So what do I mean by dynamic? It's not something that's fixed. I'm not trying really hard to stand up straight. My posture, my body is able to organize itself with stamina. So hopefully I won't get as tired because I'm organizing my body in an efficient way. So I'll have more stamina during the day. Hopefully that leads to an improved quality of life. As you heard from our two ladies, their lives were transformed, yeah? Which improves confidence and mood. So we know that if we're feeling in pain, feeling disconnected with our bodies, not in control of our bodies, confidence, depression, mood, it's all going to be impacted. It's, unfortunately, the mind and the body do go together. But if we can get it, our overall sense of well-being is going to improve. One of the nice things about Pilates, because if you've ever done a Pilates class, you will know that you really have to focus on those movements. So you can't be thinking about other things. You're really with your body. And so you have clearer thoughts, which is brilliant. We have less brain fog. We're able to actually clear the mind when we need to. And then one of the really lovely things, which I think is sort of underestimated but so important in Pilates and movement, is the sense of community and support. So if you find yourself a group, and you like this small group here, people who understand you, people that you can talk to about your condition. If you find a teacher, I'm going to come on to that, who really understands your condition, you've got a support network. And when we have, and it's proven scientifically, when you have a good support network, it's a bit like coming here to this conference where we can hear stories and meet other people, it makes us feel better. Our overall sense of well-being improves. So those are just some of the benefits. There are hundreds in my opinion, but these are some of the benefits for an EDS patient. Okay, so if you're thinking that's something that sounds interesting, something you'd like to try, how would we get started? So of course, first of all, please check with your medical practitioner before you embark on any program. Just check that they're happy for you to do exercise. Do some research, so take your time to find the right instructor. So as you can see, there's Joseph Pilates there doing an exercise. Not all exercises are suitable. So I would not be giving this exercise to anybody, okay? And there are lots of exercises like this that you would just say no. So you've got to make sure that, going back to what we said right at the beginning, check the qualifications of your potential teacher are a comprehensive program. So I put Polestar there because Polestar, it's an American company, it's global now, but they're a rehab-based Pilates organization. It's come from that rehab focus. So they're going to have a much better understanding, in my opinion, of how to modify and to take care of rehabilitation. So have a chat with any potential instructor. Do they understand hypermobility and EDS? So it may be that they don't know what EDS is, and that's okay, but are they willing to learn? Are they willing to do some research? Are they willing to listen to you about what you can and can't do? Yeah, so a little bit of patience and empathy is really important. And are they confident in dealing with rehabilitation and pain management? Okay. And are they happy to modify the exercises? So as we said right at the beginning, there are some schools that will not modify exercises. You do the work of Joseph Pilates and that's it. That's not what we need. We need Pilates that will be modified for us. And if you can, it's great to start with a one-to-one session. If you can manage to do that, because then you can really get to know your teacher and they can really get to know you. I would suggest avoiding large classes. So I don't know about here, but in the UK you can get some classes in gyms where you have 30 people in a class. That's just not going to work for us, because we need someone who's checking you, looking at you, taking care of you. When I'm working with people, it's not just about the exercise. I'm checking everything. Because we said right at the beginning, it's the mind-body connection. So if I'm watching someone work and I see a facial expression change, maybe a frown, Maybe they start to sweat when they shouldn't be sweating. Maybe they're not breathing as they should be breathing. All of these signs, changes in skin tone, all of these little things I'm looking for, because that tells me that your nervous system is not happy at that moment. So then I would say, okay, let's just stop, take a break. So someone needs to be watching you all the time to make sure that your nervous system is happy. Because the minute the nervous system says, oh, I'm a little bit worried about this, I don't feel comfortable, it starts to send those messages to start to tighten up, to start maybe giving you some pain so that you don't do that thing anymore. The mind has to be happy with whatever you're doing. And finally, take the step. You know, if it's something that you think could really benefit, take that step, and most importantly, have fun. You know, it should be a fun thing to do. So I think that's my last slide. Yes, so if there's any questions, I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much.